Hey everybody, hope you're doing well today. What we're going to be covering is an introduction to web architectures proper. So this is actually the first set of slides that are available in Blackboard. We're going to kind of go over the basics of the web. We're going to be talking about some of the different historical facts that we've been kind of, seeing as the web has really started to take off. And I will show you a couple of interesting things to kind of help you, kind of understand where we came from and how we got to where we are at today. So with that, um, what I would like to do, there we go, is let's get into the material here. So one thing that I will mention, I'm only going to mention this once, but if you are interested in any of the images that I have in the slides, I usually put the links to them inside the speaker notes just to kind of keep them off screen. Um, if there's something important or an article I want you to read or something like that, I'll give you the link separately from the slides. So, but if you want anything, just let me know. Half of them are coming from Unsplash, meaning they're royalty free, and they're just honestly a part of Google Slides, or there's a nice plugin for that. But just kind of wanted to throw that caveat out there. So, web architectures. Now, what we're going to be really talking about here is we're going to talk about who invented the web. Okay, so this is a separate thing from the internet. We'll kind of go over why it was invented, what requirements we had, and how it's different from the internet, and a whole slew of other things that we'll be going over as well. So, as we are going, I'd kind of like you to think about these questions that you see up here. Now, in Blackboard, I've got a few articles for you to read, a video on progressive web apps and things of that nature. But as you are going through the original proposal for the web, I'd like you to think about why we need it. Because that's kind of a big question. Like, we have all this great technology. Yes, we have all these amazing, networking protocols, the ability to pretty much instantly link one device to another across the world, if you actually sit back and think about it, is frankly astounding that it's even possible. But as you read the original proposals, think about the time frame, what was required, why we needed it, and honestly, how it's different from the internet itself. This is, a few of these we'll be talking about in the set of slides here, but just consider web and the internet have kind of become synonymous terms, but they're not the same thing. They are built upon each other, however, different things. So, questions to really consider. Why do we need it? This first question, who invented the web? Well, that's Tim Berners-Lee, and you know, I already gave you that answer. But think about what his requirements were for the web as you read through the material. So the web in and of itself is this massive distributed system. Um, if you were to consider that in terms of distributed system scale, this would be ultra large scale, I think is the current term for it. Basically, it is this massive infrastructure for accessing linked resources and linked files. Now, the term linked is important in there. It means that we can actually access it. If I have a link from something to another thing, that means if I am at thing A and I have a link to thing B, I can basically hop from A to B to get that, right? And the ability to access these and distribute these across the world is basically what the web gets us. Now, yes, it is built upon the internet, basically all of these different protocols which you may or may not have heard of depending on your experience level. Things like HTTP, things like TCP/IP or UDP. Basically, these different protocols that you have for accessing remote resources are what the web is built upon. Now, with that, we're going to have some design goals for the web. Now, the original set of goals that were out there, and again, you should be getting this as you read through the linked articles. Linked. Um, we want to basically contribute to the pool of human knowledge. So we want the entirety of our worldwide knowledge base to be accessible to everybody at all times, right? We're not just going to libraries and reading books. We're not checking out microfiche from the library. We want everybody's input at all times, for better or for worse, depending on your perspective of the internet today and social media. But we want to contain everybody's thoughts and opinions and knowledge in one place. Okay, we also want it to be scalable and distributed. What this means is that whether we have 10 users accessing it or 500,000 users accessing it at one point in time, the resources should scale to meet those needs, right? We don't just want one person occupying a dial-up connection and nobody else can use that line. It should be scalable. It should also be distributed, meaning that if we have one server and it goes down because it has to be restarted, security updates, whatever your needs are going to be, something else is going to take over. Or we can parallel process tasks. Distributed can mean a lot of things, but basically we don't just have one central point of failure. We have many, 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 many different nodes that are out there. All right, so we have distributed, scalable pool of knowledge. The web should also be heterogeneous. So you can take this in multiple ways. One of them is in terms of the devices that are supporting it and accessing it, right? Not everybody's going to have the same compact desktop machine from the 90s or a current generation Lenovo laptop or a MacBook or something like that. Everybody's going to have something different. The servers are going to be different. The hardware is going to be different. The network switches and routers along the way are going to be different. So this thing has to be heterogeneous. And if you've ever worked with embedded systems or devices of any type, you might know that they all have their little particularities, right? They're not all just plug and play, turn it on, and it's fine. You have to basically tweak each and every one of those. In a small scale, say your room or your home or something like that, that's not a big deal. On a worldwide scale, that becomes a massive issue. All right, so it should also be uncoordinated. So this is something which needs to organically be driven, right? We need the ability for this web that is being created to just kind of organically manifest. And the idea of this thing basically just kind of spawning and taking over actually ended up kind of working out fairly well. Yes, you need leaders at the helm to kind of push things. You need protocol specifications to be developed. You need, early adopters, things of that nature. But at its whole, it's basically become this massive thing, right? Lastly, it needs to be hyperlinked. So this was a relatively new thought where we have this big set of resources that are going to be out there, right? If I have a website, it's going to comprise a series of web pages. Each of those pages are going to be a resource. Each image on those pages will be a resource. Each GIF, think early 90s under construction, terrible, like 5-frame GIFs, which were, cute in their time and now kind of a throwback cuteness. These are all resources. How do we access them? Right? How do I, in Michigan, access something from Carnegie Mellon if I want one of their research papers? How do I go to the zoo's website and access pictures of polar bears? Polar bears. All right. How do we do this? Well, things need to be linked. They need to be hyperlinked. Basically, those A tags that you see in there are going to be hyperlinks, but we also need the ability for the protocols underpinning the web to know how to get to that particular resource. So again, as you read the papers and the proposals, and based on where we are currently at with, the web as a whole, do you actually think they met their goals? Do we have a massive pool of knowledge? Is it scalable? Is it heterogeneous? I mean, if you are even looking at it as somebody who has no idea how to program a website, make a web app, or create a React app or anything like that, you could probably say, yes, they met the majority of their goals, right? We have a worldwide interconnected web of information. It seems uncoordinated at times. Yes, there are people running the internet backbones, the DNS lines, DNS servers. Anybody can use whichever device they want to access it, right? I'm streaming this from my computer right now, this video. I could go ahead and pull it up on my phone if I wanted to, assuming I was streaming it to Twitch or something like that. by and large, we met our goals and beyond. So it's kind of an interesting thing. All right, that's probably good for part one. What I'm going to do with some of these videos is the content can kind of get long, and I know that sitting for longer than like 10 to 15 minutes becomes a bit rough. I'm going to split these videos up. So this is where part one ends. See you in the next version. Bye.